Welcome back to Close Up. The New Hampshire House is trying to find its footing amid the pandemic and the tragic loss of Speaker Dick Hinch, who passed away unexpectedly a little more than 3 weeks ago. Here to discuss the way forward and some legislative priorities, Acting Speaker Sherman Packard, longtime representative of Londonderry. Thanks for joining us and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Adam, and Happy New Year to the citizens of New Hampshire.
So there's going to be yet another unique session day on the UNH campus. Describe why the drive-in with cars option over the online or Zoom option.
Well, there's a number of reasons. Obviously, you know, with the passing of Speaker Hinch, everything was kind of thrown up in the air. And the Supreme Court decision said that we could have a video type session with House rules. We do not have House rules to go forward with that. And, you know, secondly, what in the staff was telling us that they just did not have the full capabilities of hopefully pulling off a successful, complete online function for 400 people. I know that, you know, our colleagues on the other side of the aisle said, well, the caucuses have done it. And I can tell you a couple of weeks ago when we had the Republican caucus, we did do it by Zoom. And the one vote we had took over half an hour just to count that one vote. So I know there's some things out there. We're looking at it. But this actually was suggested to us by UNH because they said that, you know, they didn't want us to come back inside because they had some complaints. So we were called, I think it was 2 or 3 Saturdays ago, by Chris Clements out to UNH, and he said, I got an idea. And I said, well, it's certainly an interesting idea. It's something different. And we started looking into it, investigating it. And, you know, we decided to go forward. It's safe. Everybody's going to be in their own cars. We've done everything possible to try and make it, you know, have everybody available to come. We have got a number of complaints from our Democratic colleagues saying that, you know, they're afraid of COVID and all that. But the bottom line is everybody's going to be in their own car.
One of the criticisms, Mr. Speaker, is that this might not be an ADA compliant event. So what's going to be done to accommodate those reps who can't sit in a car for hours on end? I know that people can get up and get out of their cars. It might be hard for some reps to do that.
Well, the bottom line is we've done everything. We've checked with our doctor. We've checked with the HHS. We've checked with everybody. And what we're offering, we believe, is we're trying to make every accommodation to everybody that has a problem. Yes, you're going to be sitting in your car. When we were out there the last few times at UNH, you were sitting in a hard chair. And I'm not sure if some of these people that are making the complaints now were even there. And I know some of them weren't. So we've done everything possible. We've even offered to pick up the representative from Nashua and supply proper facilities for him. So we've done everything in our power to comply with ADA and make sure that it's safe. So what we're doing is a lot safer than the last few times that we've been out to UNH, sitting outside and sitting inside, mingling together. A lot safer. So I'm sorry. This is just political rhetoric. The Democratic caucus attacking us, I believe, unwarrantedly.
We're just a few weeks removed now from the tragic death of Speaker Dick Hinch. The medical examiner, of course, said that he died from COVID-19. Did his passing in that fashion change at all your mind or your thoughts about how you approach returning to in-person work this session in the LOB and at the State House?
Well, we're working on a number of different ways to try and do hybrid models, you know, for our committees. We have close to 800 bills. I can't, you know, some are still being signed off on as of yesterday, and I think that was a deadline. That was a deadline yesterday. So I'm not sure exactly how many we have. We might have 775 bills. we were elected by the people to go up there, do our constitutional duty, and get these done. So we're working on a plan for the committee sessions to be done hybrid, both in person and through Zoom. We had sent an RFP out to buy the portable machines that you put in the rooms to clean the air, anywhere from 3 to 5 times an hour. We are going to have all testimony done by Zoom. So the only people that will be in the rooms are the committee members, if they choose to. If they choose not to, they can work in by Zoom, and maybe some committee staff. We're doing everything in our power to try and make it as safe as possible, and yet at the same time, we need to get our work done. We need to put a budget together. We need to, at some point, once we get the numbers from the federal government, we need to do a redistricting. We have a number of bills that will, benefit the citizens in New Hampshire, and we need to move forward. The vaccines are coming into the state. Hopefully, within the next month and a half, a lot of our citizens will be vaccinated, and hopefully, within a few months, I don't know how many vaccines we're going to get, but that, this will start to abate, and we will move as the pandemic abates. We will move in that direction to make sure we can do everything safely. We don't want to put anybody in risk, and that's why when we go back to UNH, we decided that the only safe way to do it was to have people individually in their own cars until we can get to the point where maybe someday, hopefully we won't have to, hopefully we'll, at some point later this year, we'll be able to go back into the chamber in a safe manner. But right now, it's the former speaker did things out of the box. This was something that's out of the box. It's not something we plan on continue doing. We're working on other avenues, when we have to start doing session days, probably not later this month, but the first part of February. We're putting different ideas on the table to see what we can come up with.
Now, a lot of people overlook the fact that the legislative branch in New Hampshire is really the seat of power in the state government. There's a reawakening around that in terms of a lot of the governor's executive orders. A lot of Republicans are uncomfortable, if not outright opposed, to the level of power that the governor is exercising in this pandemic. But now we have these armed protesters, some now allegedly entering into the governor's backyard. How far do you think this should go before someone like you has to really put their foot down and say, try to, stamp out the fuse in some way? Because it seems like this is becoming a bit of a dangerous situation.
I will defend everybody's right to protest, but I absolutely think it is wrong. It absolutely should not be done in front of the governor's house. If you want to protest, it's your right to do that. It's your right under the Constitution to do that. Come to the State House, protest outside like people have been doing for the 30 years that I've been up there, and probably the 30 years before that and the 30 years before that. That's where the protest should take place. It is absolutely wrong for people to protest in front of the governor's house where his wife and children are. And I've talked to some of them, and I've told them that. Do it. If you're going to protest, don't do it in front of a family. You're scaring the kids. It's just unnecessary. And honestly, I feel they're doing more harm for their cause than they're doing good.
You have a handful of.
If I have to step up, I don't know how many. I've heard that there might be a couple of legislators that have attended these protests, but I would ask that if there is, and I find out about it, I would certainly try and get them to understand that it's not the protest, it's where they're protesting that's wrong.
And you have a handful of Republican reps who have signed this document essentially declaring the election void and, quote, terminating the state of New Hampshire. It's modeled very much on the Declaration of Independence. Their parallel is essentially that they're calling the governor King George III a tyrant. How seriously do you take this effort within your own caucus to essentially overthrow the government?
I honestly do not take it that seriously, and that may anger some people, but I'm sorry. it's not going to accomplish anything. What they did to me is not going to accomplish anything. I don't know why they did it. I think I possibly understand why they did it. I just totally disagree with it.
And again, it's a very diverse caucus you have, but how much leeway does this kind of talk get? I know there's no action behind it yet, but how much leeway does a leader in your position give to people who are essentially saying, you know, end to the government?
Well, you always come back to the fact that it is a matter of free speech, no matter whether we disagree with it or we agree with it. It is a matter of free speech. I disagree with it, and I've conveyed that. It's been conveyed that I disagree with it, but it is a matter of free speech. I mean, you can't prevent somebody from saying something, no matter how much you might disagree with it, as long as it isn't threatening or anything of that nature. I mean, this isn't threatening. I think it's misguided, but it is a matter of a matter of free speech. And I mean, my God, if we look at some of these other things that are going around the country, Antifa and all those things that are burning down buildings and burning down stores and threatening people and everything else, I think this is kind of minute compared to some of the other stuff that's going around this country. I mean, out in Portland, what was it? 3 weeks, they literally took over 6 or 7 blocks. So let's. I think people need to put things in perspective as to what's happening in this country.
Unique times for sure. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Speaker, and we'll see you at the drive-in later this week.
All right. Thank you, Adam.